Welcome to Construction Genius. My guest today is Mike Gifford, the president of PSF Mechanical. PSF is a mechanical contractor out of the Pacific Northwest. Now, we have a very interesting discussion today. The first part of the discussion, we're going to dive into how to grow the service side of a mechanical contracting business. Now, even if you're not a mechanical contractor, you're going to get some insights into how to balance competing interests within a construction company. And then we're going to shift about halfway through the interview and discuss how they specifically grew their special projects group and put together a strategic plan for that. And there's a very, very interesting insight about some tough decisions that a senior executive made with regards to how that plan was going to be put together. And it ruffled feathers within the business, but it resulted in a plan that was extremely effective that they were able to execute on. And Mike is going to tell the story of that. And it's an important part of the discussion because you see, Mike is the president of the company and it's a family-owned business, but he's not part of the family. And he has grown his career from being a project manager, project executive, all the way up into being the president of the organization. And so we trace that growth and what Mike did to really put himself in a position of taking on more and more responsibility. So it's a wide-ranging conversation that I know you're going to find very useful. So hang in for the whole conversation. There's tons of great insights into how to run a successful construction company. I want to thank Mike for coming on the show. And let me just remind you, give us a rating or a review wherever you get your podcasts. That helps the show to get more visibility. Thank you for listening today to Construction Genius. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Mike, welcome to Construction Genius.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. You're the president of PSF out of the Pacific Northwest, and you guys are a mechanical contractor. Is that correct?
That's correct. Full mechanical.
Mechanical, yeah. I love mechanical contractors, and I'll tell you why I love them. I love them because you guys are a little bit unique in construction in that you can legitimately build up the service aspect of the company. And that's what I want to focus on in our discussion here today is how to grow the service aspect of a construction company. So tell me the process that you guys went through as you began to think about growing the service aspect of PSF.
What happened is we started our run with a really substantial construction client that we followed pretty much all over the country. They employed us because we provided quality and we knew exactly what they wanted from design to construction to building it. We knew that by having one client is dangerous, just because there's risks to the business. They were pretty steady. We could kind of trace ahead or look ahead for 2 to 3 years and kind of see what was coming, but there were certain cycles that weren't as good as others. And so the owners at the time, I believe, I wasn't in all the meetings, but what the message was we wanted to try to kind of diversify the business and flatten it out a bit to kind of smooth out some of the peaks and valleys. And service was something that we saw as a steady revenue, more flatline, kind of build you that foundation. It also gets you out in front of your clients. The primo client is the end user. We all know that. And to get to the end user, there are many different transporters that get you there, transportation items, whether that's working through, general contractors or word of mouth or whatnot. But if you can really get into the operations of the building and they see your value and you're their expert, that's where you get your best return.
Let me ask you, you just said there, the primo client is the end user. Let's pursue that a little bit. Why do you say that?
When you work with an end user, you understand what they need. They understand what you provide. You kind of cater your service offerings to make sure you're taking care of that individual client, even though it's all HVAC or plumbing. Each client has a different type of portfolio, runs their business differently. we're in the Pacific Northwest. We have a pretty good mix of probably our main focuses now are obviously office is the biggest one, bio life sciences. We have a good footprint in that, and then also medical. And you can imagine each one of the three has its own requirements. And what we want to be is we want to be the first phone call. I keep saying that. We want, when they think about something mechanical or plumbing, we want them to call us. Some of my best clients through my career, that's how I felt I was doing the right thing, is if they called me when they bought a building and I went and walked it with them and I was one of the few in the group, that meant I was doing the right thing, because they trusted me to help them work together on what they needed.
Okay, so let's talk about this a little bit. Let's say you've won you're building a new project, and the GCs brought you in to do the HVAC and the mechanical and all that kind of stuff. How do you go about building a relationship with the end user without alienating the GC?
That's a very, you have to do that very carefully, because ultimately, if the GC brought you in, that is your client. That's your number one client. And I'm not saying the GC is not as important as the end user. It's just they often are the ones helping you meet that end user. So you got to be very mindful not to jump over your rank, right, and get in the middle of that. However, the way you get the end user to think of you is you do a really good job. Obviously, everybody's going to say that, but you really pay attention. You, in your construction meetings, your pre-construction design, you want to reach out and provide solutions, ideas along the way, not just be so heads down, going a certain path based on finance or whatnot. You want to help them understand what they're gonna need in the future. Also understand what type of customer they are. Are they the end user of the building? Are they flipping the building? Going to sell the building? Are they going to own the building long term and lease it out? And what types of tenants are they going to have? So you really become kind of a mechanical consultant, even though you're a design build contractor. So I think that's a really good question. It's something that I've been very mindful of, and it's dangerous to say the best customer is the end user, but that can be a GC too. If it's doing a lot of a certain type of work in the industry and it's specific to what they're really good at, then the GC might be your ultimate end user too.
That's interesting. I think it's interesting how you put it there, that you're a mechanical consultant, even though you're a design build contractor. So that leads me to another question. What is the mindset difference between building the service arm of your business and then executing in terms of new construction projects? How do you balance that mindset difference within your company?
Well, the way we started it is we keep service very separate. It is, in a sense, it's its own business. It's got its own deliverables, its own goals, its own financial package, and we keep it separate. However, we're one mothership of a company, so we don't want a separate business over here and we're not connected. So through the years, we've really found that the biggest connection is between the special projects or the smaller works and service. That's the biggest marriage that starts. And that is by keeping it a bit separate there and having a little bit of a gap, if you will. The service group will reach out to the smaller construction side and say, hey, we've got this job. It's a little bit outside our normal offering. What do you think? Well, that allows us to bring somebody in from the construction side that understand, they're used to doing this every day. So they need you need to pull permits. You need to have an engineer look at, you need to run a load. You need to make sure this small change that they're making doesn't affect the whole building or get them out of compliance in that space or something like that. And, I've always said there's no such thing as a like for like replacement. We always said that, but with the code changes, with technology changing every day, you could take anything and say this is the exact replacement. It's not. It's either bigger to get more energy efficient. Oftentimes these are heavier, bigger, more insulation in them. You name it. So what you find is it's not mechanical. Is very technical.
Yep.
As you can get yourself in trouble without meaning you just didn't know better. And so you've got to be really careful. So it is a very fine line between keeping service focused on service in quotes and also branching wider for your client base to give them better offerings without running it through the giant machine do a construction job.
So this is very interesting here because you've got service, and the beauty about having a service company is that you're seeing the problems that your client has, you're seeing the opportunities that your client has, and you've got your finger on the pulse. And so what you're doing then is you're taking those opportunities and you're running them through your special projects division. And what you're saying is your special projects division is construction type projects that aren't reaching a certain size or complexity. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah, usually quick, meaning they take place in a short time frame. You're not going through a year of pre-construction and design to get to construction. It's on the spot. Take a look at it, identify it, get some submittals. This is what we're going to do. Here's the price, and move forward. Get a permit, that kind of thing. Okay, and so in the special projects division is where you guys marry the new construction and the service people in your organization. Am I hearing that right? Yeah, or bring them together at least. Yeah, we do. We pretty much have all three areas. And I will say, when you say new construction, I think of our larger group. Yes. They actually do tie to service as well. Mm-hmm. One of the things that's really been the benefit of doing service and construction is we're obviously writing up our new buildings as a service customer. We put it in, we understand it, we know what it takes to maintain it, and it gives us a chance to really make sure our customer got what they bought and it's working well for them, and also offer that professional maintenance to keep it up to speed and make sure it's maintained properly. Okay, so let me ask you this. In your experience, what is the best way when you're working on a new construction project? What is the best way to bring in the service team in order to establish that ongoing relationship? How do you manage that? Well, that's something we are very mindful of. We try to get so if it's a very large project, it's going to have a dedicated project manager on it. And what we'll do is at a certain point of the project, usually closer to completion, we key in the service department to get an executive assigned, and we get them to start, coming to meetings, get to know the people that are going to operate the building. Some cases it doesn't work. If it's a really large company, sometimes they have a national agreement or something. And in that case, but what we're trying to do now is, with technology being so good at, you get information very quickly now. I was thinking about over the last 15, 20 years, how much that's changed, but we try to make sure service is aware of any opportunity as soon as we get a notice to proceed. So at least we're tracking it. We know it's there. And now what's been critical is that we have kind of that wink time where you pull service in and you say, okay, let's get you in front of these people. We're getting close. We're starting to talk about how the building's going to be maintained, what needs to be looked at. Sometimes there's specialty equipment in those buildings that take more maintenance than other things. You've got the shell house system, and then you have the tenant systems, and kind of getting that process. So we've identified over the years that getting service engaged, before you want to do it before you're finished. Right. Let me ask you this then. So in my mind, I've got this scenario where I'm a project manager, I'm running a new construction project, and I'm judged on the profitability of my new construction project. And let's say there's a really good service opportunity with this new construction project, and the temptation from the executive level is perhaps to run the project less profitably in the new construction phase because of the service opportunity that's going to come in the future. Is that a tension at all in your business at any point? No, not with us. I don't see us doing it that way. We sell the project based on the competition we have to get the project. We try to manage it at that level, and then we keep it separate. I've heard of companies when I was young in the industry 20 years ago. I had heard of companies, and again, I wasn't in this part of the business, but I heard of companies maybe taking a business or taking a project at making less profit so they could get the service. But that was just things I'd heard. I haven't witnessed us doing that. It's a tight market up here. We have a lot of competition, so we're already about as tight as we can get on our big jobs. Okay. So you don't really have that tension. So let me ask you, what is your goal in terms of the growth of your service division? What do you think in your mind is a healthy chunk of service for a mechanical contractor? Well, we at our company we've been tasked with, or I've been tasked with, we're going to try to double our revenue in service over the next 3 to 5 years. So that would basically double our percentage of our business.
Okay.
We're going to grow that area, and we're also going to grow our special projects or our smaller second generation type work. A lot of it is driven by the market. I'm not saying we're not going after big new projects, because we still are. We're going to grow that too. But the biggest growth will be in those two divisions, because our larger project group is big already,
right?
Larger. And we just, as you know, with the pandemic and everything we've been going through, in Seattle, I used to fly into different states when I was in sales early in my career, and I always looked for tower cranes because that told me there was construction work.
Yeah, right.
And, during the big boom we had, I think it was 50 tower cranes in Seattle for several years. I mean, that was a big indication that we had a lot of new building growth and things. So a lot of it is we're trying to be on the tips of your toes so you can pivot the right direction of those three for what's ahead. And we know service is always there.
Right.
It's a dangerous statement, but it's pretty flat. So the more we can get of that doesn't take the whole business on. It gives us a better foundation to start from. It also interlocks well with construction and construction back to service, like we talked about. And then, as the new construction comes in, which I'm sure it will, it's just getting the economy back to where people are investing in it. We'll continue to build that group, but it's 60% of our business right now. So it's already a big piece. So what we want to do is get those other two groups to be more equal in their percentage of the business. So we've got all three instead of really dependent on one market, just like having one client, right?
Yep.
Make sure we've got that diversity, and we've got outriggers out to keep the business as stable as we can. It's never a perfect flat line in construction. We all know that.
No, I get that. Well, what do you think is the main difference in the mindset between the construction side of the business and the service side of the business?
I think with service, you keep that client. I mean, you want to keep them forever,
right?
As long as you can keep them, the better. In construction, you don't get that luxury. You want it, but oftentimes the person you're working with moves on to another project. You might lose them for a year because they can't work with you, or they're helping somebody else on a different project. So sometimes you lose your client for a year or two, and you just can't stay with them. And I'm speaking more on the GC side of business. But as far as service, you're able to stay with your client. You're able to retain them year after year, and it's more predictable. I mean, it's much easier to look in front of financial analytics and to show your service business, because it's very flat on the line. It's still got, if you magnified it, you'll see peaks and valleys in there, but at the overall financial look of a business, it's much more flat. And, people like that. They like stability. It's less risk.
Right.
It's risky when you get on an extreme peak or an extreme valley. Those are the hardest points of managing a business. I mean, we have all felt it. So
let me ask you, in terms of the philosophy you guys have as executive leaders, in terms of developing leadership underneath you, do you take someone, let's say, who's in the construction side of the company and say, hey, why don't you come over and work on the service side of the business for a while to get to know it, and vice versa? How do you handle all of that? We're
working through that. We absolutely do that when we can. We try to promote from within, which is something that I learned early on. That's the best. If you can find people within your organization that bring their skill level and promote them into another area, they bring that, and they add it, they get to learn from the group they're in. So we definitely do it on the execution, production side of business. We have our large project production, whether it's shop or field. Same with second generation smaller work, which is the more get it done in a few days, detail it on the site and order stuff in. And then the service, especially now that we're doing more of the what we call service project work within service, that's where we're starting to really blend that line. And a lot of it is just the process it takes to do it. It's a service company can definitely do it. It's not that. It's just at this company, we had it very specific definitions, and we are kind of blending that together. So it's a good question. It's actually relevant to what we're working on right now, which is we recently removed the divisional lines within the business.
Interesting.
And that was hard for me because I learned the divisional lines by working with two of the business units of the three, and it became kind of like having your own business. You manage to that. But what we want to do is make sure exactly what you asked, that we're getting that crossover and we're using the best team. It really is not important which group they're focused on. It's each project needs to be looked at uniquely. What are the challenges? Who's the customer? Do they have, do we have service techs that know that client? If we do, you want them involved, right? Their people are working on the job. You want to have that consistency. So we're working into that.
How do you balance then removing the divisional lines with keeping people focused and executing? Do people ever feel like they're bouncing from one to another?
I'm sure they do. Luckily, we have some leaders that all of our leaders came from some sort of, they've worked in that area in some capacity. So we're fortunate that I can work with the leaders and we work together on it. So we set that emotion, and then it's just the way we do business. We are going to work together. One of the reasons I've really liked PSF and been here so long is the very first year I started here, our engineering manager walked by my desk every day. I actually started a fabrication sales division for PSF when I started, which was completely different from what I do now, obviously. But this gentleman, Ron, he walked by my desk every day and asked me if he could help me with anything every day. And I said, you know what? I really appreciate it. I was sitting under the stairs in a little corner desk, kind of off the beaten path. And I thought, man, that guy is really nice. And it's really cool. He keeps asking me, but he's an engineer. He's over engineer. I don't engineer. I just sell parts and pieces. A year later, I ended up in special projects. And guess what? I had to sit with him. And one of the things you had touched on is a mentor. I mean, I got to sit next to him and ask him how to lay out a building, meaning design it. And I'm not an engineer by trade. So he showed me. And then I like to do things on my own. So the next job, I brought it in and I tried to do it myself. And I walked in and showed it to him. And instead of going, you don't know what you're doing, throw that away. He said, this looks really good. Here's what I would adjust.
Right.
Let's do this. Let's do that. And you know what? Every time he did that, pretty soon I can do it in my sleep now. I mean, you can hand me a blank sheet and I'll do it really quick for you. It's no problem. So having that ability has really been a good thing, and having those people within PSF that are willing to go out of their way to help you. That's something that's been really great to help with that. So
let me ask you, PSF is a family-owned business, and you're the president of the business, but you're not part of the family. Describe to me, it's cool. Describe to me your, go ahead.
I said I'm an adopted family member.
Yeah, right. No, that's cool. Describe to me your career path through the business, how you got into it, and how you grew into that role of president.
I used to work for a local manufacturer that I worked selling the products, commercial products, to the West Coast, and PSF was one of my clients. I had worked with somebody that came over at one of our competitors very, very early in my career. And he asked me one day what it would take to get me to work at PSF. And I honestly thought he meant be his sales rep. And so when I came over, it was actually a group of the owners at the time, the family and the minor owners that are no longer here. And they talked to me about coming to work at PSF and gave me options such as service, selling fabricated stuff for them, because we have some substantial wet and dry shop capacities, or doing like tenant improvements and construction. I felt like I was very limited in the selling parts and pieces, even though it was probably very easy compared to what I do now, thinking back.
Right.
I didn't know yet. So I took him up on it, and I started selling fab for him for about a year, and then it branched into special projects. And I started following around one of our senior sales folks that did a lot of the biopharmaceutical work. And he's probably the best in the industry that I've met. I mean, he's super solid. He's very well known, done it for a long time. I kind of started shadowing him and picking up the smaller stuff that he was focused on, the bigger work. And so I started taking a lot of his small, what I would call the scraps. But that taught me so much, because that was the go crawl around in a ceiling, figure out what you have, what are you going to put in. The bio industry is very fascinating because you get to see they're making things to cure cancer, or drugs for certain types of, disorders and things. It's very, very rewarding. And so that's how I really learned quickly how to do what I was doing. And then eventually started working with some medical facilities, bigger hospitals here in Seattle, and getting to know their construction managers. And, that was very rewarding. And then, of course, office, compared to those two offices, I wouldn't say it's easier because it's still challenging, but the office came as a second nature after that. So that's how I got started. And then about, I should remember, 8 to 9 years ago, a couple of the owners sat me down and said, we would like to do $20 million in special projects work in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to do it? And they basically, I believe he was the president or CEO at the time. He was really good in the way he did it. He took myself and 3 others, and he said, I want you to meet every week until you can tell me how you're going to do it, what it's going to take, and give us a trajectory, kind of a business plan on what that looks like. So, and what he did was, at the time we had multiple owners, so they all kind of had an opinion of how to do it. Some came from the larger side of work, some came from a retail side of work, so everybody kind of had their strengths. And what he did was he kept us shielded and wanted us 4, which was myself on the sales side, a production leader, an engineer, and a project manager.
Interesting.
And we basically it took us about, I think, a month, 4 meetings or so. We came up with, this is how we do it. This is the process. And they said, perfect, get going.
So let me just stop you there. I think this is very important. I want to make a note here. So you were tasked, along with some others, of growing a division of the company to $20 million. And I think it's interesting, the composition of the group that worked on the problem. So you had yourself in sales. Sounds like you had someone who was involved in project management. Just give me those people again who was involved in that group, nice and slowly.
Okay. So myself from the sales business standpoint.
Yep.
We had our manager of project management.
Yep.
We had an engineer that was very experienced in special projects work. And then we had a superintendent of production. Okay.
All right. So you've got the sales, you've got the office, you've got the field, you have the design element. It seems like the engineer. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, why do you think that the senior executive, why do you think he composed that specific team? What was his logic behind that, do you think?
Well, thinking back, I think he knew what he was doing, but I wasn't sure. I just thought we were the ones that dealt with it the most. But the way you're phrasing it's pretty clear he knew he was touching each of the main 4 corners of what we do.
I think it's interesting because one of the reasons why initiatives fail in businesses is because they don't get the necessary buy-in from the various parties within the company that are affected by the decision.
Yeah, that's very true.
And
we had that challenge going on. Like I said, he kept us shielded from outside input and even told people to let us do this, and not get involved, because I think there were people that were itching to get in that meeting that were above us as far as structure, as far as their level on the org chart. And he kept us. I remember meeting in a conference room. It wasn't the highest, but we met in a conference room that was not in the main building. And we felt pretty secluded in that meeting, that we could talk about how do we do this without the pressure of, well, this is how we do it. You got to do it this way.
Okay. So this is really interesting. The question was, how do we do this without the pressure of this is how we do it?
That's correct. That's very true.
See, that's very interesting. So that is some pretty. Whoa, who was the leader there who set that group up for you?
He was our CEO at the time. He's no longer here.
Okay. So he had that vision, so to speak. And it's interesting because it sounds like the people in that group weren't necessarily at the top of the org chart.
Definitely not. No, we were middle on the chart.
Interesting. And so then you guys came up with the plan for growing the special projects group. And then what happened?
I had to go before the board and give them a 5-year business plan. It wasn't super hard to do. It was, here's what our costs are going to be. Here's what our revenue needs to be. Here's what our gross margin's going to be. and here's what we'll make per year for the next 5 years to get us to that 20. It was a difficult question I had, and I still joke about it of, do you want to hit 20 million on a peak, in the middle as an average, or a valley? Right. That was question number one. Question number two was, is $20 million absolute no matter, does it mean not make money to get to 20 million, or do we need to make money while we grow? Because you have to invest to grow.
Right.
And I kind of got the laugh as an answer, which now I realize, yes, it's a marriage of both. Back then, I really wanted to keep myself protected because it was a risk personally of, the thought of what if we fail at this or whatnot. And what's crazy, or what's been really exciting, I should say, over the past 8 years is once we started showing our trajectory, we actually did very close to what we set up. Each year it got better. I could give them a better business plan because we had done it for a year, then 2 years, then 3 years. Within 5 years, we hit the 20 million. We actually did it in 4. And we now, that what happened from some people saying, why, should we even do this? It's small, it costs a lot, there's more overhead, you got to do more projects, you got more touches, to how do we do more of this, which was a big change from.
See, that's interesting, right? Because I'm hearing that pushback came from the new project side of the business, so to speak.
Yeah, that's a fair statement. It wasn't everybody, again, it was just.
No, yeah. It's interesting. So how do you think that whole process where you were involved in that group that put together the special projects plan and then executed it, how did that then impact your career trajectory?
Well, for one, I learned, so I started my own business when I was 19, and it was an overhead door company, which is what my dad was in and taught me when I was a kid.
Right.
So while I was going to school, I did that. And I owned it for about 20 years. So I knew how to have a business, but I had no experience at it. I just thought you worked hard and you try to make money and it'll work out. Young guy, no experience. When I got in this business, and what I was able to learn by, first off, going through the process of sitting down in that think tank and coming up with how we were going to do it, coming up with a business plan, then coming up with financials to measure off of, so we could see where we were winning, where we needed to fine tune. That was huge. And it really taught me a lot. It gave me the financial side view in a detailed, financial look. And I was still selling work and managing it as well, and bringing on new people and helping them get up to speed to do the sales and the project management. Then we started to get the internal office support, like junior project management type support, to kind of lighten the load on the project management side, to keep our hunters out hunting for work. We kind of started balancing all that. So as that worked, it gave me a confidence. Plus, I had to learn how to do design build. I was very specifically focused on production and how to build things. I had to learn the equipment and why it's a certain way, and how you pick a certain thing, why it goes in that way, and all the different technical aspects. So as I was learning that, learning the business on top of that, it really gave me some confidence with that. And then being able to achieve our numbers year after year and actually exceed them, very, very competitive. Most salespeople, you're in sales because you want to be the best at what you do. You want that accolade of, hey, look what I brought to the table. Check it out. Get excited. Yep. You don't want to sit there and deal with it, but you want to bring it in and be excited. Yeah, right. And then find another one. So I think that helped a lot. I also got to learn our business inside and out. I got to become part of, the next step was I became a vice president, and I got to sit at the corporate meetings, and we started digging into the business financials, not just my area of focus, but I got to see how my part of the financials affected the overall financials of the business. And that was the next step of learning it. Then we went through some ups and downs in the business, some changes. We changed some of our management on the ownership side. The family retained the business, and they've got multiple generations through it. So it's very meaningful to them. It's cool to be part of a family business like that, because you've got a family that cares about their business. It's analytics of a business, because you're in business to be financially solid, and you have to be. But there's a lot of emotion in that too, because it is a family business. It's been around for 100 years, so that's been great. But as I started to get through that, I ended up working with, at the time we had a facilities group, which was a bit unique for a mechanical, meaning we employed on-site folks that ran buildings for one of our bigger customers. I had to learn that aspect, and service. Service became part of my arm as well. And I had to work and learn the service part, which I was, when you talk about construction, I was on the construction side of things. So then I had to learn the service side. And I'm still learning that part, but it was much closer to the business I owned, which was a garage door company. It had a lot of it had similarities to the business I owned when I was younger. Now I had more experience. At least I knew what I did wrong over and over. So I've learned from that, right?
That's interesting.
As that grew, we're working on growing service. The next step was to be COO. I became over operations, I believe, next. And that was really focused on raising up some of the key people. The production person that I told you way back sat with us in the 4.
Yep.
He's my partner. He's been next to me every day through growing our special projects to any kind of projects we have. And I'm really fortunate. He's been at PSF for 32 years. So he's been through every kind of change imaginable, but he's super, super solid when it comes to how we execute, how we do our processes. So I was able to elevate him with me. So he's really helping me on the operations side. And then January this year, Kevin moved up, he was president. He moved into the CEO role.
Yep.
And I put into the president role. And now what we've done is, like I said, we've blended the lines of SPTI and new construction, as you call it. So we've got kind of a bigger group, but we do have sales focused groups on the type of work they sell. And then also the production group is broken up by the type of work they execute.
Okay. So then as you're coming into this new role as the president, and you've been in that role for the recording of the podcast here for a few months, what has been the biggest challenge so far for you in that role?
Well, getting into management, to start with step one was going from being a player and bringing stuff in, like I said, and putting it on the conference room table and go check this out, to being a coach. You're not on the floor anymore, and now it's making helping your teams be successful. If they're successful, that's the proof that you're doing your job well.
So let me ask you this. What was the biggest challenge for you making that shift from being a player to being a coach?
I think the biggest challenge was finding people to take over the areas I felt intimate about, handing that off. And then not all of them had the luxury of doing everything wrong like I did for so long.
Right.
So they're in that role, and it's a bit new for them, which is great because they are bringing new perspectives to the table, or ones that battles I might have fought and lost, and now they're fighting those battles and winning them. So it's been, interesting. But I think the player to coach it's actually become something I really enjoy, even more than making the sale now. Had you asked me this 10 years ago, I would have said making the sale is the best part of what I do. But hearing people in a meeting say something that you said to them,
right,
and they're using that as something to help others, you're like, hey, I said that to him last week. It worked, or
That's
it's
right.
good. They're using it. So they're not just listening to me going, oh yeah, whatever, typical. I know you're going to say this and this because you say it all the time, but
yeah, right.
Yeah. So that's the reward. The hard part is just, you're not the one out there dunking the ball. You want to grab things sometimes and say, hey, let me help you with this, because I think I could get it done. But you're not helping them. You're actually, you're taking away their thunder, because you're stepping in and they're like, you don't even know what you're doing anymore. You're a dull pencil now. You're just overhead, But two, just encouraging them to do well, and then really seeing, rewarding the progress they made, making sure it's appreciated, remembering the things that I wished were better for me when I was younger in the trade. It's easy for us to get busy in the executive level and be focused on economic conditions, pandemic, safety, those are all very, very important things that impact our business very largely. But we can't forget that our troops are out there fighting battles every day.
Right.
And we have to make sure that we support them. So probably the biggest challenge, like I said, was just being able to let go of some of my babies, the SBTI.
Yeah, so let me ask you that real quick. Let me ask you about that. What do you focus on to stop yourself from running on the court and playing the game? Right? You've got one foot on the court. You're about to run on there and grab the ball and dunk it. What do you do to stop yourself?
That's a good question. I'm getting better at it now, because at first I had to get my head slapped a few times. And I got good managers that remind me when that happened. But now what I do is I feel like I actually impede the progress. And I remind myself that if I do run out on the court, I'm actually getting in the way now.
Yep.
So I don't even hardly remind myself anymore. It's just second nature now. I just know that they've got it. What I will do is, one of the things that I didn't like, and I'm sure many of us have felt, is when you work for someone and they do the snapshot, they walk out, take a picture, and that's what you do every day, 40 hours a week. Well, they caught you at 5 minutes of one day of the year, and now that's what you do every day. And it's something they didn't feel you did right. So that's really dangerous, because you're making a decision without all the facts, basically, or an observation. So what it allows is just to hang back, have a one-on-one with the manager and ask. And oftentimes I learn they're doing it differently than I did it, which is great. They found their own recipe that's working for them. And you got to trust you got to trust your teams, all of them, not just the managers, everybody. So now if you've been burnt before, or it's a risk to the business, and that's my job to help make sure we mitigate our risk, I will ask how they're going to get through this, and I'll ask those very specific questions of, here's something I've seen go wrong. What are you doing to mitigate this? Or how did you come up with this? So
let me ask you that then, because, on the one hand, you want people to do the work. On the other hand, you want to make sure that you're holding them accountable. What kind of rhythm of accountability do you set up with people so that you feel comfortable staying off the court, so to speak? Well,
during this last year, we've been working remotely. So I've actually become very fond of the online, like Zoom, like we're doing, because I can check in with just about everybody every week. And what we've done is I have about either a once or 4 times to 2 times a month, I check in with each manager, and it's just a touch base. When we were in person, I did this normally. I didn't even have to put it on my calendar, because it was something I just roamed the building and stopped with each person. How you doing? What are you working on? How's it going? And it's just and it gives you a chance to take the temperature, But yeah, it's just following up with each one, checking in, asking questions. I go to the meetings, construction meetings. I actually enjoy that I can go to our construction meetings now. You sit in a meeting with pretty much every aspect of our company involved in a meeting, and I can hear, how is the interaction going? Who sounds like they're overwhelmed? Who sounds like, this system isn't working right? I'm hearing a frustration with something that I've heard a few times. So let me go work with that leader, and let's figure out how to get that fixed. And then once you start seeing that the leaders are fixing things, you're even more open to, hey, I've got this idea, and those are the great ideas. All of them are great, because just like us, we figured out how to do SBTI as the doers. We need the people to speak up and give us that insight as to, hey, things have changed. We don't, we're doing it this way, but the industry's, made a 45-degree turn a year ago, and we're still going straight. We needed to turn. So let's make a 90-degree turn now and get over there and get on track. So
let me ask you a question. I'm curious. As you go back to that whole thing that you described earlier about being involved in the planning around growing the special projects group, how do you think that has impacted you, having been given that opportunity? How has that impacted you in your role as president, in terms of your giving other people opportunity and your willingness to receive input from others?
Well, it's been very positive. It's given me experience in their positions of what they're going through. It also, I liked, like I said, how I was approached, meaning, here, go figure this out and let me know. And I'm going to keep the outside influences out, because we all have them. We all know there's noise going on and I mean, you can watch two different news stations today. Doesn't matter which news you watch, and they're different. Well, you're looking for a fact. What's the fact here? Well, you've got extremes. You don't have what's the middle? I want the middle, So I think what it's given me is I am able to help coach better. Right. I'm able to use what I learned. I say I did it wrong because I look back and instead of seeing what I did good, I see, man, if I had just done this, if I had just done that. So those are the reminders, which really you don't want to repeat what you did wrong. You want to grow on what you did right.
Right.
So I think it's allowed me to focus on what worked well. How did we grow? It gave me confidence in our numbers because now we're 8 years into it. And I can see the predictability in that group, which even though service is completely different, there's similarities. And then you look at a large side, there's similarities too. It's different cycles is all, but it's got there's the same main ingredients. You in a business, you got to spend less than you brought in. It's that simple.
Yeah, right. No, that's awesome. Amen to that. So let me, as we're wrapping up here, I really appreciate these insights, Mike. I'd like you to just to end with giving us some advice, because again, you're in a family business, but you're not part of the family, and you grew from being a PM all the way to being the president of the company. So let's say I'm in a construction company right now that's in a similar situation. What advice would you give me if I wanted to grow my career within a company like that?
Well, first off, don't feel you're limited by your job. You got to be careful not to get outside the lanes, as I like to call it, and start, don't just take a 90-degree turn and start poking on somebody else and tell them what they're doing wrong in something you don't know. But just because you're a PM doesn't mean, I took classes at night to learn how to do design. I knew that was a weakness for me. I wanted to learn more, ask your peers. Something that's really nice about PSF and it being a family culture is there's nobody in this company that wouldn't help you. If you said, hey, I'd really like to learn how to do this. Right. And this is what you do. Will you teach me how to do it? Everybody will do it. Right. Everybody in this company. So while you're working in a company, you've got so many teachers and mentors. You just got to reach out to them. Right. And so number one, make sure that you could do that, ask questions, learn, don't stop that. It sounds generic, but the more you learn, the sharper you are. And I don't think, I think, Mike, it's not generic,
because what I'm hearing from your experience is that you were very active in taking on things that you didn't know and trying to learn and trying to grow. So that's a very, very important thing there.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to say you don't know. Right. One of the things that turns everybody off from wanting to help somebody is if you act like you know something you don't. Yes. And know better. So be open that, hey, I don't know this. And you do. Can you help me understand it? And I'll tell you, even as a president of this business, I learn more now than I did then. That's beautiful. Which is scary because people are looking at where are we going? And it's like, well, we're going here, but we're going together. We're going to get there. So I think that, that, and then also remembering that it is a business. Right. At the end of the day, when you get home from work, you think about what did my manager do that upset me, or my customer was too hard on me today. It was a rough day. But at the end of the day, it's a business. You're here to make the business successful, gives us all a place to go every day. And it's got to be successful if everybody contributes, the business will make it through any economy. It just will. Right. You'll have to adapt to what's ahead or what changes in it. But and then always, back to the learning. Technology is so fast now. Right. That, the stuff we did last year is old news now. We're doing things different already the next year. Yep. So not getting stagnant, make sure you're pushing your knowledge, my knowledge to grow, makes you more valuable and then then reach out to your managers and say, I want to do more in this business. Right. How do I do more? Most of us, what we don't realize until we're at a different seat at the table is when you're at the higher seat at the table or the end of the table, let's say, yep, you're looking for the people who wants to do this. Yep. And there's opportunities all the time. When you're working on a project every day, you don't realize there are people in that company going, is there anybody we have that would want to do this? Right on. So reaching out and saying, hey, I want to take on more. I want my role to grow. How do I do this? And I think that would help people. And that's something I've learned as well.
That's terrific, Mike. Well, I really appreciate your time. I enjoyed the conversation because we hit on the service aspect of the business and growing that. And then we hit on just your career development, which was, very, very interesting, very insightful, and I know very helpful to people. So, Mike, thank you for coming on Construction Genius today and sharing these insights.
Eric, thank you. You've got an awesome podcast. I really thank you for inviting me and look forward to listening to you into the future and hopefully seeing you in person here soon. So.
Awesome. That's beautiful. Thank you. Today's episode was brought to you by the Construction Conclave. If you as a construction leader would like to develop your skills and get involved in a community of like-minded construction professionals who are focused on building healthy teams, profitable projects, and long-term successful businesses, then the Construction Conclave is for you. It's a private, invitation-only group of construction leaders that are focused on developing their leadership skills. We do training every single month online that looks at how to become a better leader in a very practical, straightforward way. We also have other events that build community and camaraderie so that you can associate with others who are interested in developing their skills as leaders. If you'd like more information and to see if you qualify for participating in the conclave, feel free to reach out to me, eric@ericanderton.com. Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes, share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit, and thanks again for listening.